Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Saturday edition of the Paranormal Weekend Morning Brew Show. I'm Nighthawk, one of your hosts. We got Grandmaster G in the back room, or actually, no, he's on the grand stage right now, and we're still waiting for Dennis to come in. So, Dennis, if you're out there, got your ears on, come on in, good buddy. So the water's fine. All right. Copyright disclaimer. This channel may use some copyrighted materials without specific authorization of the owner, but contents here falls under the Fair Use Act of 1976. Okay. Nighthawk High Strangeness podcast channel does declare fair use of any and all content, that's any and all content, to be used for the sole purpose of informing you, the viewing family, of information for educational and general knowledge purposes, parody, news, criticism, and anything else under the sun that I can get away with. No, actually, yeah. Anyways, we all know I don't get away with anything, especially on YouTube, so, and Facebook with all the bots. So, but anyways, we got to put this out there in the beginning. So, that being said, alrighty, let's take that off of there and something a bit more entertaining on there. What are we gonna put on there? That's a little bit more entertaining on there. And here he comes, Mr. Entertainment himself, Dennis, Brother Dennis, and Grandmaster G.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Good morning.
I wanted to add something to your copyright disclaimer, if you don't mind. Can I add something to it? Okay. No werewolves are harmed in the making of this podcast. Okay. I want to add that.
Yeah. Yeah, that way we don't get PETA to censor us.
That might be a good thing. People on our
That's a pretty bold statement from the Night Stalker.
Well, I try to do what I can,
Oh, anyway. God, I can see what kind of morning this is going to be. Anyways, let's say hello to a few people that are out there.
I'm a werewolf. I got the
let's see who we got out there.
We got some pretty hot feedback last night. It got kind of rolling there with us. I don't think William could keep up with it too much. We had some. We work on the comments.
Really weird stuff. Castor Polex 15. All right. Val in Southwest PA. Cynthia Price. Good to see you. Good to see you. And of course, G Raven Creek Charms, Gary Spikes Sr. Alrighty, who else we got in here? We've got, let's see,
Roll call.
there. Let's put Scott's thing up. Yeah. We got to do it now. My lovely wife, Tracy. And I believe that is all that's in the comments.
I don't think YouTube likes
Juno's in there. Okay.
We're a bunch of bullies.
I don't think so either. There's Scott, Werewolf's House, Penny Van. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Tammy Smith. Okay.
I had to bypass YouTube to get it on my phone.
I think that's everybody.
It didn't show up on my phone again this morning. That's weird. I don't know what's going on with that. That's strange.
It's called censorship, is all it's called. You know, and I've noticed it, and Tracy's noticed it, because now on any of the announcements that come out don't come out under Nighthawk High Strange's podcast channel. They all come up underneath G and Chiro's channel. Midwest.
And I still can't catch mine live on Facebook.
Can't win for losing.
I got it all set up to go out on Facebook, and I still don't see it. I see yours, but I don't see mine.
See what's going on? Facebook is censoring G, and I'm getting the axe by YouTube. That's literally what's going on. I don't understand it. I really don't.
I done run into several times here just recently Facebook censorship on certain things I posted that had absolutely nothing to do with that. I think one of them, they cited me for nudity, which I didn't have any nude pictures of or anything. I mean, I don't understand that. It seems like, here's what I'm going to say this, I'll put it out there. It seems like they just enjoy doing the harassment thing on some of us, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one percenters are out there, people that are controlling our world, you know, so making us conform to their ways.
I'm glad somebody's having fun with it. You know, I'm just here to entertain everybody.
Bear arms. Werewolf says bear arms. I think you can get much barer than this.
Bear arms. We're good at bearing arms. I don't know if Gerald doesn't know about that, but I was kind of a sex symbol on the show last night, but that's another story.
Okay. We won't get into that. We won't get into that.
Burt Reynolds thing. I'm not going to do the Burt Reynolds thing. Okay. Remember that?
Yeah, we won't get into that. Otherwise, I'm going to have to put something else up in the corner, and that would be probably something along the lines of.
We'll be rated R up there, you know. Get the kids out of the room, okay? There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, well, at least it's not an X rating.
You ought to switch us around so Dennis can have the advisory by him.
Yeah, we should have parental advisory, explicit content by Dennis. Or we can order this up. Maybe we'll this up.
Explicit content. Just how do you define explicit? It just depends, doesn't it? Especially if you're a Facebook worker.
Alrighty.
It's all subjective these days.
Yeah.
Thought police. Remember in 1984, thought police?
Yeah, subjected to their opinions.
Yeah. Language police and thought police. That's what we have nowadays.
Yeah.
Big brother.
Don't think it. Don't say it. You're all right.
We got Rocky in the house. Yep. Oh, I screwed up making coffee this morning. Oh, you talk about bitter.
I tell you. Put an extra dose of sugar in that for you there, Will.
That's the problem. It's got too much in it right now, too.
It'll be bouncing off the walls before we're done.
Now it's a sweet bitter.
Yeah.
Now it's a very sweet bitter.
Bittersweet.
Anyways.
I made some coffee the other day. I swear you could have used it as paint thinner.
I don't know. I woke up late this morning and tossed and turned all night long. Couldn't get comfortable. Oh man, probably what half the world is doing. So, but anyways,
I was not getting all night long. I had one of those nights where you just wake up all night long, wake up and go back to sleep, wake up and go back to sleep kind of thing, you know. Weird dreams and all that stuff.
Yeah. 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 Anyways,
anyway.
Excuse me. Yeah. Anyways, we are going to start where we left off yesterday, guys, with the whole into the basically the flying humanoid thing.
Flying humanoids. We didn't get to one of my favorites in Greek mythology, the harpies. That's a very interesting flying cryptid type thing. Weird looking thing, and actually they're very devilish or demonic because they prevent you from eating, and they harass you to the point of almost insanity. Harpies are nice people to have around. Yeah, I think it's very interesting that they have the heads of women, by the way. Long hair, the heads of women. A very strange Greek myth, the harpies. They were really basically flying demons. That's what harpies are, basically. But if you remember the story, I can't think of his name. It was with Jason, in the Argonauts, where the poor guy was blind, and he was on this island, and the harpies would not let him eat food. They would come down and steal his food all the time. And Jason captured him with a net. And the guy said, "I'll tell you what you want to know if you'll just let me get something to eat." So they captured the harpies for him so he could eat, and he told them where the fleece was. That's the part of the myth. But anyway, the harpies were awful things. You wouldn't want to run into them.
Nothing a 12 gauge can't handle.
Mm-hmm. But that kind of illustrates the point going back thousands of years that people have always been talking about flying humanoids of some sort. Look at Icarus, who flew too close to the sun and all that, It's not nothing modern. It's not nothing new. It goes back centuries.
Yeah, that last map you showed. The last map you showed had flying creatures on it and had the golden fleece on it. It was kind of a mixture of everything on that map that you showed last, William.
Oh yeah, the Hereford map. Very interesting. I have a poster of it on my wall, actually. And it was really the first thing that I ever encountered many years ago that was a topographical type thing that alluded to cryptids. if you'll see, I think the Cinephages are on there. That's the dog-headed men. You see them depicted on there. That's a very interesting legend that ties in with Dogman to in a certain extent. Although these people were described as perfectly normal human beings, except they had the head of a dog. That's very interesting. But they were supposed to be a whole race of people. And I think it was supposed to be in Africa somewhere like that, where they were encountered. But it's and they're on the map along with some other really weird cryptids. How about that one that has only one foot? And
Yeah.
he can hop around on one leg, but he keeps the sun off of him with his foot, kind of like an umbrella. Weird stuff, man.
I like Scott's comment there. G and I were just talking about this before we came on.
Go ahead. I was just going to say that's one of the few maps that depicts the second coming of Christ. He's actually showed on that map. I don't know if you saw that, Gerald, but he showed on that map with the rising and the dead rising on one side, and the other one's going to hell on the other side. It's very medieval type of a thing. But anyway, I'll shut up.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Christy and Brandy just got back from the LBL, and they've been waiting all week to talk about those stories. And they said it looked pretty big, and it was like a bat. You know, it flew like a bat, but it had, as far as they could tell, I guess they didn't get a real good look, except maybe one of the kids did. And they were wondering if it was like a miniature bat or Mothman or what it was. Yeah.
Well, you know, in the comic series, comic books Batman, he has a villain called the Man-Bat. And they actually got the idea for that for some of these humanoid reports. They said, let's put that in the comic book, you know, and make a good arch villain kind of thing. So you've got the Man-Bat kind of thing. But that's what inspired that. There's been stories down through centuries of Man-Bat, men that are partially bats. And we're not talking about vampires.
No, you guys
per se.
Are you sure they didn't see a flying squirrel on steroids?
I don't know. They had a lot of high strangeness going on this time when they went down there, and everybody was seeing different stuff, and not everybody was seeing the same things. And it was a pretty good story. And this Sunday, we're going to have Blondes and Booze on my podcast or our podcast, and Krista and Brandy, hopefully they'll get in more into LBL and tell us some more stories.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I go show June sometime, so that's coming up. So, anyways, but without to bore everybody with what's going on with me, the whole small Mothman type of a thing, you know, it makes you wonder, you know, because G, you and I were talking before the show about that very same thing, and you know, it kind of brings into mind about the whole shape-shifting entity type of a thing. Could it possibly be a shapeshifter? Could it shapeshift, or could they have seen it in between shape-shifting from what it normally is going into the Mothman process?
I still kind of like
true. I've said a lot in the past about spiritual creatures transforming during the transformation or passing through portals or whatever may be going on. They will change shapes and look differently, you know, from what they originally looked like. So what do? You really don't know what you're dealing with. You know, you may see one type of an image one time, and then you see another one the next time. You know.
Yeah, who knows what's out there? I mean, could the Mothman or whatever energy we're seeing, you know, during the day be a normal looking person, you know, shape shifting into looking like one of us? Or Or is it really a vampire entity living in these big cities, hiding out, and then coming out later and changing into a Mothman?
Well, like I said last night, Gerald, especially with the Mothman sightings in the Chicago airport up there, um, a lot of sightings up there. Actually, a coven of witches came out and said, we're responsible for it. We let this thing in through a doorway we opened, they actually claimed that. Now, whether that's valid or not, I'm not here to say for sure one way or the other, but they claimed that. And you have to wonder if something like that might not have some kind of a dark magic connection to it. It's nothing, I don't think, that would appear in normal nature. I mean, I could see Sasquatch being part of normal nature. What I call normal nature, just an unknown thing. But some things violate the laws of nature. Just like now, you look at Dogman for a minute, okay? The reason they call him Dogman, he does not look at all like a man. Okay, let's put that out there. It is not the only reason why they put the man thing in there is because he's bipedal. He walks on two legs, like a man, and that's the only thing he's got in common with a man. Okay, but they still call him Dog Man. So he's not half man. He's a full canine looking thing, whether it's wolf or whatever, So he's got no part of man in him like the original werewolf, which is a thing of black magic. He's a man most of the time, or a woman, as the case may be, until he makes that transformation into a wolf. And here's another thing: we've got that kind of confused in our minds because of Hollywood. A real werewolf does not look like a man. It runs on all fours like a wolf. The wolf man, on the other hand, the old Lion King Jr. Wolfman, he was half man, half wolf. So you see, there's a hybrid thing going on there. So there's a big difference between a wolf man and a werewolf and a dog man. So you got three schools of thought on that,
Well, I think between all the movies and the myths and the lore, people kind of interchange those terms, even though they're all separate entities. I think they kind of get mixed up.
Yeah, but what I was going to say about the Mothman, take a look at him. He does not belong in the normal course of nature. I mean, this is just something that really, unless he's some kind of weird, way out, interdimensional, unknown creature type thing, that's a possibility. But he doesn't really belong here, so therefore he would be alien, wouldn't he? Really, if he came from another dimension, he's not supposed to be here. That's the interesting thing, and that's what I said last night about Mothman. He is downright demonic to me. Wherever he shows up, bad things happen. He's got those red eyes. He terrorizes people. He haunts people sometimes. It's almost a haunting thing. He is very, very demonic in his demeanor. And that's what makes me think he's more like a demon than anything else,
Well, you said extraterrestrial or whatever you want to call it, but we have us that are terrestrials, obviously. We live on the earth. We have interterrestrials that live inside the earth. We have extraterrestrials that come from outside of the earth. Then we also have ultra terrestrials, which are angels and fallen angels. So I wonder if he fits into the ultra terrestrials. More dimensional.
That's another theory answer, Scott, right quick. A dog man is described both ways. Sometimes they say he looked like he had human hands and not like paws, like a dog. But he still doesn't look human. He's still got those claws and all that. But he may have kind of the digits of a man. But he has no resemblance to a man at all about him in his description in that perspective. But getting back to what you said, here's an interesting thing, and I've always thought this. Could not the Nephilim factor answer a lot of these cryptid things? That these things are not supposed to be here. Somehow or another, they're unnatural things. They were brought forth from an unnatural dimension or whatever the case. Could that not be, the outshooting of the Nephilim and what they were doing and screwing around with stuff? And Here's why I say that, okay? And I mentioned this last night. We'll go back to the Bible for a moment about the Nephilim. It says at the very beginning of the whole thing that the earth was without form and void. And here's what I said: that word void is really Greek, and it's not. It doesn't mean what we think it does. It means chaotic. It was all messed up. It was all screwed up because the Nephilim did that. They fell when they fell to earth. They messed everything up. We know this happened. This fall of the Nephilim happened before man ever came along, because that's the timeline in the book of Genesis. Okay, Satan was already there before man was created. Okay, so he was already on this planet. You might say this planet was invaded by the Nephilim. Well, actually, not the Nephilim, but the fallen angels. The fallen angels, we got to remember this, are the fathers of the Nephilim. Okay, that's the way that goes. And so their whole thing was they were screwing around with nature. I think they were messing around with DNA before they knew what DNA was. People didn't know what that was when this was written. But I think they were screwing around with mankind, trying to screw up God's creation. You know, that's what they're all about. They impede God in whatever way possible they could do it. And that included messing up man by breeding with man. But now, here's the interesting point about that. It says this very specifically, and we got to remember this. There were giants in the earth those days and afterward, when the sons of God came unto the daughters of men. So the giants were already there. Giants were there before the Nephilim. I mean, before the fallen angels got messing around with humanity that way. You understand? You got to remember the timeline going on here. They said, yeah, that's true, Love Cat.
I agree with Love Cat.
Yeah, well, the whole thing is the Nephilim are the offshoot of the fallen angels' progenitive output with human beings. But the giants were already there. So what the Bible is telling us, and I think a lot, not just the Bible, other books like and other cultures like the Mesopotamians and all that, they back this up. Giants were a race already on this world, but it could have been result of the infection of evil in this world. See what I'm saying? It could have been that chaotic thing. Here's what I say about that chaos thing. That's where I believe the dinosaurs came in. They're not natural appearing creatures when you look at them. Come on, you know. They were sort of like, where did here when you look at nature and the nature of this planet that we live on, where the heck did these dinosaurs come from? Yeah, I mean, why aren't they still around? You know, and there's so many theories for that. But where did they originate? It would not surprise me if the fallen angels had something to do with the dinosaurs. You know, if you go that far back, that they screwed this whole thing up. So that's where that Nephilim factor comes in. But the giants were already here. Yeah, that's very unmistakable. It said that. So you've got a race of giants. Now here's one more thing about the giants, and that's interesting. We'll have to do another show on them one day. Here's the one thing about the giants you got to remember. Every god ever worshipped just about on this planet by people, by man, was a giant. You look at Zeus, he was 15 foot tall. Look at the Anunnaki, they were giants. Every one of these. Look at the Odin and all them and Thor, they were giants. You know, they could look like normal people when they wanted to. Of course, they were shapeshifters, but they were still depicted as being larger than life. Where did mankind get that at? Because he knew that there was a race of giants already in this world. And here's one more factor. They say that Goliath, they say that some other famous giants, all of them keep being described as having this red hair. That's another connection. Well, let me say one more thing about red hair. It has been thought through many cultures down through mankind's history that if you showed up with red hair, you were probably a spawn of Satan. Okay, I'm sorry about that redhead people, but that's the way they believed that if you had red hair, you were a vampire or a witch or a giant, whatever the case may be. You were the spawn of the devil. That's what you were. That's what they believed. I'm not saying you were, but I'm saying that's what they believed. So, the interesting thing about it is red hair was a abnormality, really. It wasn't a common occurring thing. Even blonde hair wasn't that much, you know. But red hair was even more special, because it was very kind of rare. But they didn't know what to think about that. Like people with blue eyes, that was very strange to them. And they have now found that every blue-eyed person, and I have blue eyes, by the way, every blue-eyed person has a common ancestor that started, I think, like 60,000 years ago or something, somewhere in the Mediterranean. So that's the interesting thing. You got to hook up genetics and DNA with a lot of this stuff and see what the heck is going on there, And I think that's where a lot of this may be the foundation for a lot of these cryptids. Because, like I say, they just don't belong here, in normal terms.
Well, I'm just wondering, if you talk about the fallen angels, and it says in the Bible, where they came to mate with the women from Earth.
Uh-huh.
Now, what's to stop them from being, they're dimensional beings, obviously. They can be whatever shape or whatever they want to portray as. So what's to stop them from saying an extraterrestrial race coming here and them mingling with them, whether it's the avian, the bird beings or the tiger beings or the reptilians or whatever. Maybe that's how we're getting all these cryptids. It's from the fallen angels mating with them, not only the earth people.
Uh-huh. Well, that's like I say, that's what they were doing, screwing around with our DNA. They were trying to destroy the creation of God's handiwork, which was man. They would love to do that, and I think they're still at that. I think they're still up to that. I think the plan is still going on to a certain extent. They want to screw this world up, and they'll do it from the very minutest part of it to the biggest part they can handle. Like I've said in my book, The Road Unseen, this is the way I describe these fallen angels. They are an invading force of aliens. That's what they are. They're not supposed to be here. They've invaded us. They've taken over a lot of this stuff. They're screwing around with us. And here's another thing about the aliens, Cheryl. They're always experimenting with people. They're getting people and they're doing all these things to them. Why is that? Nobody ever stops and says, why are they doing that? Are they desperate to hybrid with us? No, I think it's part of a nefarious plan by these fallen angels to keep doing what they've been doing and screw up mankind royally. And it may also tie in to timelines. They may be also trying to screw up the timeline of what's supposed to happen. They might be trying to mess that up, see. So this may go on many levels, not just one level. This interference by these bad actors. But that's like I say, here's the one common denominator of all this, okay? If it looks like a demon, crawls like a demon, does like a demon, it has to be a demon. That's what I'm saying, just like the snake, and what you're seeing here, I believe, is a lot of demonic activity on the part of these actors. Just like we were talking about Mothman. Why does he always show up where bad things happen? Why is he haunting people? Why is he terrifying people? That's not good. That's not the action of the good guys. Just like the aliens I'm talking about, the weird thing, the mutilate cattle, if that's what they're the ones doing it, and mutilate people. That's not a good thing. Okay, that's not the actions of a good race or benevolent race. It's malevolent, not benevolent. Okay, and that's where I get to draw the line with these people that say, "Oh, these are our space brothers. They're gonna save us. They're our saviors. They're gonna come cure us of all our diseases and lead us into paradise. No, I don't see that. But of course, some people are making a religion out of it. Of course, some people make a religion out of unicorns too, but that's another story.
Well, I believe, in what you're saying, but I also believe that there's many good in all these creatures also. I mean, look at Williams' heritage. They had Sasquatch and giants, that helped them. They battled them at first, but then they became a working part of their tribes. And there's this all through the whole thing. You hear people online talk about where they were raised around dogmen. They weren't all there to kill them necessarily, or they at least came to peace with them and they were able to work and live around them.
Well, I think there was an uneasy, sort of an uneasy alliance in a way. There was sort of an uneasy stalemate with them. Here's another thing I was going to mention this. Another common description of giants, they're always described as being very hairy. Who's that sound like? Sasquatch, doesn't it? That's a possibility that some of these races of giants they talk about could have been Sasquatch. I mean, come on, look at them. Some of them have been reported as being 15 foot tall. That's a giant in my book, definitely. And what if they ran into a race of Sasquatch that had sort of reddish colored hair and were 15 foot tall? You'd say, hey, that's a race of giants there, But they look kind of like men, but they're giants. They have all the hair on them and all that. That's another thing. That's another factor you have to wonder about when it comes to folklore and culture. Where all this come from? Because people had to see something like that somewhere down the line, But as for these things being good, some things that's a very evil kind of description there. Of that's supposed to be, I think, a Sasquatch, not a dog man. But these things get told over and over. They become legend. They become folklore of these people. It had to start somewhere. Well, I think it's very interesting that giants have always been described not only the red hair but very hairy. And they eat people. That's another thing about them. They're cannibals. That was a taboo thing for ancient man. You just didn't eat your fellow human being, kind of thing. But the giants are always described, most of them, as being cannibals. Look at the Cyclops in the Greek legends. He ate Ulysses' men one by one. So you got a lot of interesting connections going on with that. But the Bible clearly says that there was a race of giants already in this world before these fallen angels supposedly made with human women. A lot of people skip that part. They don't look at that, but that's what it says, before and after they came unto the daughters of men. And I think, here's another thing that really bugs me. If this race of giants existed, why is science trying to cover that up?
Go ahead, William.
I was just going to say that I think that the whole world's gone to hell anyways in a handbag because of reptilians. Whether you want to call them demonic or not, or whatever you want to call them, shadow government. I've seen a lot being in the military. Yeah, I've seen a lot being in the military, and I've also seen a lot living, and especially through earlier years, and to me, it's like our whole makeup of our world right now is an illusion. It's a grand, and I hate this like illusion, because we have so much manipulation in our societies as a whole from every angle coming to us. We have mind and thought manipulation. We have visual manipulation. We have extrasensory manipulation. We have hidden manipulations. We have holographic manipulation. We have, all this manipulation out there from the powers that be that are in control. Then you hear about how certain actors and actresses are immortal, basically. Take, for instance, the picture of Obama that we had a while back on a podcast where it showed him looking just like the Egyptian pharaoh. Take Keanu Reeves, for example. Take, Brad Pitt and all of them. They have people's photographs and stuff, depictions in the past history. And I'm not talking like 50 years ago or 100 years ago. I'm talking thousands of years ago, okay, that look like them, okay? Is it a part of our make that we either have a certain percentage in our society that are immortal, or is it simply a misconstrued notion of being immortal and living forever, being construed with possibly time travel, which is a secret experiment of our government through the special access programs? So, I mean, you have so much, and then you throw all the other crap on top of it, all the corporations and the BlackRock and, General Mills and, all these Coca-Cola, Pepsi, the majority of everything we buy and eat, It gets to the point where it's almost you can't determine the crap and the fake from the real.
Well, here's the thing, William. If you got all that power and money and influence, what's the one thing you need? You're not going to live long enough to enjoy all of it. Look at old George Soros. He could kick the bucket any day now. Of course, his son's sitting ready to take over for him when he does. But look how he has tried to manipulate the society we live in today, and done it very successfully too, by the way. You've got all that power and prestige and money. What one thing do you need to really complete the whole thing? Immortality. Think about it. If you're setting yourself up as a god of this world, you can't fulfill that role completely as long as you're immortal. If you are immortal, you get to live a long time and enjoy your power and your money and your prestige and your influence or whatever it is you're after. And I think that's why I call it the God game. That's the game they're playing. Man, in the wrong ways, in league with demonic forces or whatever name you want to give them, is pursuing immortality so that he can be a God on this world.
You remember the sitcom The Immortal, where the race car driver got in that bad accident and he got that blood transfusion and he didn't age anymore and he healed real good, and that billionaire kept trying to capture him to draw his blood for infusions to make him immortal or younger?
Yeah, the rich guy was after him big time. Kept sending agents after him. He wanted that blood so he could be immortal. That's the name of the show, by the way, The Immortal. That's what it's all about. That's the game they're playing, and they'll use cloning to do it. They'll harvest your organs if they have to, but they'll use cloning. They'll use AI. They'll use robotics. Whatever it takes to obtain the one thing that they need: immortality. They'll never die. And here's one more offshoot. Here's one more fringe benefit of immortality. If you live forever, you don't die and face God in the end, do you? For what you've done, you kind of circumvent that. That's why it says in the book of Genesis, we got to throw man out of here, because if they take of the fruit of the tree of life and live forever, they get immortality the wrong way. In other words, we're going to have a big problem if they do that. So that's why they were thrown. That's why they were kicked out of the Garden of Eden. To keep them away from that tree. That's why that cherubim with a flaming sword was put there. that man could not come back in and take that garden back, especially that tree of life, and live forever. It wasn't meant to be that way. And that's what these guys are doing. They're still thumbing their nose at God. Oh, we can do that. We can be immortal. We don't need you. We will be our own gods. And that's the God game. That's the name I give it. That's exactly what they're playing. And let me tell you one thing, my friend. They'll do anything. I mean, anything. There's nothing off the table to achieve that goal of immortality.
Well, they can play any game they want, but the Bible also says every man will face their reckoning.
Oh, yeah, but they would like to avoid that, wouldn't they?
Okay, well, I'm going to...
Yeah. They would like to live
I'm going to
forever.
put this out there to you guys. I'm going to put this out there to you guys. You know, some people say that the Bible is just a guidebook. It's just a writings of a man that walked the earth as a prophet, not as a god. It is, you know, simply a way to recommend to live our lives. They're not actually stating that it is a book of spiritual beliefs anymore, because so much has been taken out of it over the years.
Context.
And we all know that there are several books that are missing. The Book of Jubilee, the Book of Enoch,
the Book of Enoch.
Yeah. I mean, the Book of the Giants. I mean, there's just so many of them that are missing that it does almost make it seem like it's incomplete. Okay, and maybe if we had the whole thing, we'd be able to understand what is going on in our world right now.
Well, that's like the Book of Enoch. Okay, if you and I have studied it extensively along with the Book of Giants, and I find it very interesting. The Book of Giants was acknowledging what I just said earlier about this race of giants, although science doesn't want to acknowledge that because it proves the Bible right. They don't like that out there. They're really enemies of the Word of God. I consider the Bible the Word of God. That's what it is. That's what it says it is. Okay. But anyway, they discredit that. Even archaeological wise, they discredit that. And yet it's been proven time after time after time to be correct. You know? But science doesn't like that. They don't, and I think that's why they're so prejudiced against the giant thing. They're hiding these skeletons. They're losing them conveniently. They don't want that out that they are wrong and the Bible's right. They don't like that idea. And of course, they can lose grant money that way too. By the way, it's all about the money. Anyway, I think that's got part of it. But I think that so much has been proven right about the Bible. You can't dismiss it outright because it has pointed the way many times more overwhelmingly in the true category than the untrue category. You know, to me, you know, the evidence is weighed. It is true. I believe. I agree with you, Love Cat. The Holy Bible. It says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. The Word was with God, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among men." That's a pretty bold statement, but that pretty well tells you the whole thing. Jesus, of course, was the Word of God, the living Word of God. And that Bible, that book, is a living book. It's not a dead, dusty old history book. It's still alive. It's still influencing people, saving and changing lives of people. How can you discount that? You know, it's just another book. You know, because, you know, God said in the beginning, my word is a living thing. My word will go out and do stuff. God spoke in the beginning and created a whole universe. He spoke it into being. That's the word of God. That's the power. And what is more closer to you, Gerald, than your children, your wife, or anybody is the words that you speak, or you. They really are. And you can always judge a man or woman by how they talk and how they, with the innermost thoughts come out in their speech, because that's them. They're on display. And that's why the best writers that ever wrote books or anything were like writers that were sitting down there talking just like you and I are talking right now with each other. That's the kind of writer you want to be and the kind you want to read, because there's that connection. And it's an amazing thing. And I said this the other day to somebody. You can sit down and connect with somebody dead for 500 years, but you still got a connection with them. They're dead and gone now, and their bones are dust, but you still got a connection with them through what? Their words.
Yeah, I mean, the Bible obviously is God inspired, and I truly believe that. And not to make this a religious show today, but
Yeah.
if you have to have a personal relationship, and be able to believe that the Bible is a living word.
Well, like you said, Gerald, it is spiritually written, and therefore it must be spiritually read. Just like Jesus said about God, He is a spirit, and you must worship Him with what? With spirit. That's how you deal with things. And I've talked about this my whole paranormal career. I've told people this: when you're dealing with something spiritual, you have to look at it in a spiritual sort of way. Okay. It's like you don't go to McDonald's and order a bowl of spaghetti. You're not going to get it. Okay. It just don't work that way. And you don't deal with something spiritual in any other way except spiritual. And you deal with something physical in a physical sense. That's just the way things are. But some people don't get that, you know, and they miss the whole point.
Yeah,
Yes, thank
speaking
you
of,
guys for your service to your country. We really appreciate that. Thank you.
yes,
Go ahead.
thank
I'm
you.
sorry.
That's all right. I was just going to say, talking about the spiritual way to deal with things. I mean, the Bible talks about that. How you deal with demons and what you got to do. And there's just all kinds of, I don't know, written and non-written language about being spiritual and being on that plane and how to deal with demons and supernatural stuff, and that's what we're encountering these days. And people have thrown the Bible and God out, and they don't know how to deal with all this stuff, I don't believe.
Well, and people, Gerald, tend to push that spiritual side of this universe aside. I don't want to deal with that. It bothers me. It scares me or something, whatever their problem is. They push that spiritual aspect aside. Science is good at that. We don't believe in that. That doesn't exist because we can't put it in a lab jar and look at it. You know, um, but therefore you can't see the wind, but you can see it blow a house down. Doesn't mean it ain't there. You know, just because you can't see something, and that's what science can't deal with the spiritual. They can't see it because they're looking at it the wrong way. They're looking at it through physical eyes. That's what I said on the show the other night. You got to open your spiritual eyes. You got to work on that, opening that spiritual part of you. And it's very important that you do that because most of this universe is unseen. It is spiritual, in that respect. So to me, that's a very important thing that you don't forget that spiritual side does exist, but some people don't want to deal with it. It scares them. Like I said before, it's that fear of the unknown too. They don't understand it. How many times I've had people say, "Oh, ghost, Bigfoot." I don't believe in that. I don't believe that. But let me tell you what happened to me, or what happened to somebody. There's that side of them that wants to believe. You know. Although the one side say I don't believe that that's a bunch of junk. I've had people tell me in the face, if you saw Bigfoot, you must have been drunk or bummed out of your mind or something, because There is no such thing. They'll tell you that, and they'll laugh at you. Look at all these old snide news reporters. Every time they talk about UFOs, they're on there giggling and laughing and a little bit. Whatever the case may be, they don't believe it, and they make fun of you for believing. Even if you're an eyewitness and you weren't drunk, you weren't hallucinating, you weren't insane, you saw what you saw, they still discount that because they don't want to believe it. No matter about you, it's they don't want to believe it. And that's a stupid way to be, though. I hate to say that, but that you don't get much more stupid than that, really.
Well, if you can bury your head in the sand and go about your business every day in your little bubble, then you don't worry about all the high strangeness going on around, and you can just live in your own little perfect world and just go on your merry old little way.
Yeah. I tell you what, if something comes after me, I don't want my head to be in the sand. I won't see it coming. I don't want my butt up in the air. I want my head in the ground. I want to be there, see it coming, meet it head on here. That's stupid. It's just plain out stupid. I used to have a saying. I think it was a little thing I had on my desk. Ignorance, you can alleviate ignorance, but there ain't no cure for stupidity. And that's very true. There ain't no cure for some of these people. They're just too stupid. Look how many people voted in the last election for certain people I won't mention. But anyway, we've got that stupid factor in mankind, and I'm afraid we're gonna be doomed by it if we don't watch out. Definitely.
Now to kind of get back to tying this all together, you talked about the Apocrypha, all the books that were left out of the canonized version of the Bible. You got the story of Lilith, and in that story, when you read that, she got mad and cursed the human race and then flew off. So she had wings. So, kind of like the humanoids that we're talking about that are flying.
That's true. I think mankind has known for a long time that there's other things in this world. We're talking about the ones that deny this thing, but I think mankind has really known all along that these things are here with us. And look at the folklore, look at the culture, look at all these things that keep popping up. Although here's the interesting thing. On one hand, they say, I don't believe in all that stuff, but look at the belief systems of the world and the culture and the folklore. It's amazing. It still amazes me to look at it and understand where these people may have been coming from on that, The clues are there. And I'm saying there's some pretty heavy smoke coming off of that fire. You may not see the fire, but you can see a lot of darn smoke coming up off of that. And you got to wonder, why, if we've known all along, why does we keep denying it?
What you got, William?
Getting back to the whole, cryptid thing with the whole biblical connection. You can't help but think, like G said with Lilith, having the ability to fly away with wings. We had a person in the chat last night said that they often felt like they had wings, coming off of their back. Honestly, there is that possibility. I mean, that there is that genetic trait that pops up every now and then, just as much as humans being born with tails.
And I think too, William, there's a connection with spirituality and wings. We've always depicted angels as having wings, and the Holy Spirit was described as a dove with wings. I think we have a connection, a spiritual connection to the birds in the air, things that fly, because we wanted to fly so much. and be like them, and didn't until we invented airplanes and stuff. But um, I think we've always admired them for that, and we kind of associated that with the spiritual side of the universe. To me, that's an interesting connection. And I think that may be inherent in a lot of people too, spiritually and psychically. These kind of symbolism of wings, being a free spirit, being free and all. To me, that's an interesting connection too.
Well, I think that person meant that in a different way, in a completely different context.
Well, I know
they
what you're
actually
saying, but
felt like they had wings coming out of their back.
Look at the Anunnaki. They were described as having what? Wings. A lot of the gods were described as having
not all of
them.
So if this person was describing having the feeling of sprouting wings, or the feeling that maybe they had wings at one time, or they're about ready to sprout wings, maybe that's how we got the Mothman. Maybe it was a humanoid that actually did evolve into a winged being. Maybe they started out normal, and I don't know. How do you explain it?
The only explanation I could see is, and I'm sorry, I have to keep going back to that, but these attributes stack up on the demonic side. Demons would have wings because they once were fallen angels. They are fallen angels. They once were angels. They would still retain the wings, although they might not be the same as they once were. That to me is the demonic factor in that. I hate to keep putting that out, but I mean that's a very obvious clue to some of this stuff. When you talk about winged beings, you're talking about some of them in descriptive phrases as demonic looking, because demons definitely would have wings because they once were angels. And here's the other thing about the angels, and I talked about this last night. You get the real description of the seraphim and the other angels. There's different classes. They don't look human. Okay, they do not look like you and me. They are not human-looking things, although they can look human when they want to because they can shapeshift. But they're described as two ways, and this is very strange. A bunch of feathers, a bunch of wings, and eyes all in them. The Sephiroth especially are that way. And then there's another angel that's described as looking like a wheel inside of a wheel with eyes all about it. What is that? So you got some weird looking spiritual creatures here. So if you could throw Mothman in that section, that would make me say, oh, maybe he's some kind of a connection to that because he's flying around with wings. He's a bad guy, though. I still say he's not a good guy.
Well, if you take it for what you're saying, Dennis, that angels could have been, different entities, whether they're creatures or different attributes, and then they were fallen angels, and maybe that explains, the different cryptids that we're seeing, that maybe they were all different from the beginning, and then when they came to Earth as a fallen angel, then they separated into their entities, and you have Dogman and Mothman and reptilians and all the other cryptids that we're seeing.
The shapeshifters. They're shapeshifters. They can take on any imagery they want. I know that without a doubt, that they can take on whatever image they want. Just like we've said before about the Slender Man thing. He was once a made-up character. Now I believe he's real. He's real in a demonic sort of way because they are using that imagery.
I'm just saying, if all these creatures and these wondrous beings were in the throne room, and you say, maybe some of them came down as fallen angels, then they would show up as different cryptids to us, in that form. They wouldn't have to shapeshift. They were already that way.
Here's another clue, girl. Some of these angels are described as having 4 faces. the face of a lion, the face of an eagle, the face of an ox, and the face of a man. What is this telling us here? That is imagery like shapeshifting. That they can look like anything in nature because they are creatures of nature. That's the way God created these things. But that's another interesting thing.
But there is demons that have there is demons like Amadeus that have 3 or 4 faces.
Yeah, well, see, that I think that 4-face thing was an obvious allusion to shapeshifting. That these things could shapeshift. They could look, but even the wheels that I described, the wheel inside of a wheel, they said they had 4 faces, and they didn't turn. They could all go straight where they wanted to on the ground. You got some very alien-looking things going on here. That's all I can say. When you look at those descriptions and stuff, and the imagery of it alludes, I think, a lot to the shape-shifting capabilities of these creatures. It would not surprise me a bit if a fallen angel could not look like Sasquatch when he wanted to, or Mothman, or whatever he wanted to look like, because they have that attribute. And I said that before. That's the number one thing that sets supernatural entities apart from physical entities is that they can shapeshift at will. We can't do that. Can you do that, Joe? Can you shapeshift into a bear right now for me? You can't do it.
I know a lot of humans though that act nice and are really evil. If you want to call that two-faced or shape-shifting.
Well, I got you all beat. Power base, you might could shapeshift.
Go ahead, William.
I got you all beat. That's my lovely Tracy. I shapeshift into an then too.
Well, a lot, especially in dark magic, and able to shapeshift. You have to hook up to an outside force to do it, to become something else, That's what I'm thinking about in that respect. To me, I don't say a man can just walk up and say, I think I'll look like a bear today. Of course, you can act like one, but you can't look like it. That's a different story. But, that's the story a lot of times about these other unnatural things they're saying. Look at the deer men that people, not really deer, they call them. What are they? They're walking around on hind legs like a man, but they look like deer. And you have some other things out there like that just don't fit in the mold of just being an unknown animal. I just don't buy that.
But there is a disease that are in wildlife that tumorous growths on the outside of their bodies and make them feel like it's the chronic wasting disease where the mind starts to go on the deer and all that, or the certain wildlife. Then you have rabies on top of that. So what's to say that some of these deer that people are seeing aren't chronic wasting disease, aren't tumorous, non-tumorous, non-cancerous tumors, and the rabies combined. I mean, it all adds up. So,
well, I have actually seen bears that had a deformity where they couldn't get down on all fours. They could walk around just on 2 legs just as good as you and I could. And they did that continuously. They didn't get down on it. I've seen dogs that have had that happen with them. The dogs that would walk around on their hind legs because they couldn't get on 4s. Something would be wrong with the bone structure, whatever was the problem. Things in nature can fool you sometimes by the very actions they take, things they do. So you can't discount that part too, that it could be an abnormal thing going on, If you were to see a deer tonight walking across the road on two legs, my first thought would be, hey, maybe there's something wrong with that deer. He's not acting like a deer. There's something going on there, you know.
Getting back to the shape-shifting comment, Juno brings up a good point there. If you stare into a mirror, and when we were kids, we all did the mirror, I think, for the of doing it. You say love Harry like 3 different times, and you stare in the mirror blinking, and you'll see your face change. Okay, mirrors
I've seen
are a
that with my
gateway,
own eyes.
and a lot of ceremony, and a lot of magic. So, what's to say that you can't shape shift with the abilities and enhancements of mirrors and stuff?
I think it's not a naturally occurring thing, I don't think, but I think it can be done if the mind is in the set enough, the will and everything gets balanced the right way. These things may be accomplished by the sheer imagination and imaginative will of a person. You might say, like the tuples we've always talked about, the thought forms. If you can create a thought form, you could definitely change your looks if you wanted to think about it. But I don't think it's a naturally inherent talent, unless it's something that's so far down in the layers of our humanity that we can't reach it. One day we may have that ability when our spirits are free from our meat jackets. Definitely, I believe we'll have that ability because I think that is what supernatural creatures definitely have. Like, is normal to them as if it is we when we put on a pair of socks. Would be the same with them. But I also, you got to think about this too, that most of the time when you shapeshift from a human being into something, you're using a darker force to do that. You're cutting corners, just in other words. You're using something that's bad to get to accomplish what it is you're wanting to do. That's the thing with the shape shifting. And here's one more thing though with the shape shifting thing you got to consider too, and that is, um, I have actually seen this with my own eyes, and we're talking about this outside force now. I've actually seen people, William, change their whole face. I mean, these people morphed into something that did not look human anymore. I've seen that with my own eyes. I mean, right in front of me, just the way I'm looking at you two right now. I saw this happen, and it was a change that came from inside, brought about by diabolical forces. I know that without a doubt. These people weren't voluntarily doing this, although there may have been some cooperation in that. I'm not going to say that. But this was an outside force bringing this through. I think as humans, we lack that ability. I think it's there. Maybe possibly it could, you understand. But I think we lack it on the surface unless something triggers it or some outside force instigates it. I just don't see humans walking around. If that were the case, we could have done that eons ago and became trees out in the forest, and nobody could have found us, or we could have done other things if we could shapeshift. I don't think it's inherently human, unfortunately. I think under certain special circumstances, it may be done. I believe that without doubt because I've seen it. But I just don't think it's an inherent ability in that way.
Well, I think you're talking about the supernatural, obviously, or dimensional beings. Be able to shape shift or change in, or maybe even like a mind speak kind of thing, where you project into somebody else's mind what they're seeing. I mean that just all leads to dimensional beings.
And it could be these outside forces use that inner ability to bring forth that will to change in that respect. But you're not doing it voluntarily, I don't think. You know what I'm saying? It's just something you can't reach out and touch when you want to and do it. I think there's certain circumstances They can trigger it, and they can. I think every living being, and I'm even talking about dogs, cats, has an ability in some ways to adapt to certain environments, and that might be part of it. You know what I'm saying? That adaptation. Uh, and that may be an inherent ability in us, built in us as living beings in that respect, too.
Well, what do you think, Dennis and William, about if we gain full access of our brain? You know, they only say we use 10% of our brain and our pineal glands blocked off. What if we had full access? Would we be able to shape shift? Would we be able to transform ourselves? Would we be able to fly? Would we be able to do all this stuff that we're seeing in the cryptid world? Maybe they're not affected like we are.
I think we would then be supernatural.
I
What do you
agree.
think, William?
I wouldn't say we'd be supernatural, but we would definitely be superhuman. We would definitely be able to have special abilities, more heightened senses, a third eye, as you say, that can see well beyond our normal sight. You know, maybe even the ability to teleport, to fly, to to do this, that, and the other thing. But
We'd be
just because we were
humans.
given special abilities doesn't necessarily make us supernatural in nature, because we're still flesh and bone and blood in nature. We're not supernatural just because we have special abilities.
But if we could do that, we would be superhuman to a certain extent, were we not?
That's what human, not supernatural. Yeah, there you go.
Some use less.
Scott says some use less than 10%.
Some use a lot less sense, too, Scott, by the way. It's amazing what some get by with using less. You know what I'm
saying? Yeah. Anyways, we've gotten completely off the rails this morning with our original subject matter, but it's been a good conversation. But I think it's going to be a long day. So I hate to say this, but it's probably going to be to go pretty soon. I want to post a couple things. First off, please follow us, like it, please hit that little thumbs up or the heart, or the heart, anything like that, to give us the algorithms we need to get these notifications out, because a lot of people aren't being notified, because every time we go back and look at the likes, there's only like 3 or 4 likes and there's like 50 people watching. So we need to get those likes up to get that algorithm going. And if y'all can, please, follow us and Midwest Night Watchers on our YouTube channels. Subscribe. The more subscribers, the more chances of getting the notifications out. Get that notification, okay? Make sure you get all the notifications, okay? And let's see. We are going to.
I was going to say, William, you need to mention our groups too. Go to Facebook.
When you think of the demonic,
join our groups, and that way, because we always post our shows and everything in our groups, and they'll be able to see it that way if they don't get notifications through YouTube.
Yeah, true. Facebook groups. Yeah, here, let me put the banner up for you guys. Let me take that off of there first, though. So I got to hide that comment there because it's so big. Um, let's see here. Okay. Banners. Okay. There is Midwest Night Watchers Facebook group that's being shown. Come on. Come on, StreamYard. I'm about ready to throw this computer against the wall. There we go. Are you kidding?
Yeah, I tried that with a computer one time. It didn't work.
I'm about ready. I'll tell you what. I don't know what's going on with StreamYard, but it's got a freaking mind of its own. It's getting ridiculous. Enough to drive for somebody. It's a short trip for me. I'm big crazy. I can't get that. Let's see here. StreamYard, you are really messing with me right now. Can't get that comment off of there. StreamYard is completely froze up for me.
Yeah, you're kind of freezing up on our end too.
This just makes me.
Yeah.
Makes me think.
I think it got worse when you try to put the banner up.
Yeah, it's probably trying to use too much of your resources and
Follow up.
Well, what it is, got a bottleneck kind of a thing going on there.
Your sounds. Sound. Look for oh, finally, look at that. Finally. But on Facebook and Facebook, you can send me a friend request or whatnot, and you'll get all the notifications there. You can follow Nighthawk High Strange, podcast channel on Facebook also, and you'll get notifications through that. Depending on and one thing I've noticed lately is Facebook is always disconnecting from StreamYard, and I don't know why. And it's not just our shows, it's everybody's shows that are doing it. So I think they found another way of going around all these so-called podcast channels and stuff. So, but anyways, that being said, I want to wish everybody out there that's a mom happy Mother's Day, including my wife, Tracy. You know, we as husbands and fathers are not perfect. We don't claim to be perfect. But we try to appreciate, when we can, when we get our heads out of our butts. But and sometimes, we in fits of pain and frustration, we do things that aren't really polite, I should say. And I'm talking about all of us guys as a whole. But today and tomorrow, we want to wish all the mothers out there and even the grandmas out there a happy Mother's Day. Okay. Hope your weekend goes good, everybody. And we will see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. right here. Okay. And you can follow Dennis on Facebook. And you can follow Midwest Notchers and Chiro Sounds on Facebook. And you can follow myself on Facebook and the Nighthawk High Strangeness podcast channel. So we have several different platforms that we're out on. And I don't know. I really wish I could make sense of why you're not seeing your live on Facebook right now, because I'm looking at the screen up top. I'm looking at it up top, and you can see that it's actually selected for your channel.
I know I set it up, and I even had it verified, and it said everything was okay. But yet when I go, I've actually went where we're live, and I can't find it on Facebook streaming anywhere. But then I'll get a notification that we streamed.
Oh, God. See what I mean, guys? This is the powers that be trying to control the masses. And it's got to stop. It really does. It's got to stop. It's getting too old. It really is. It's getting way too old. But anyways, I want to wish everybody a happy Mother's Day out there. That's a mom and a grandma. God bless you all. And we will see you all in the morning at 10 a.m. for coffee.